our topic today is all around conflict management. And the person I brought on board is Anil Awasti. He's a seasoned HR expert, as well as an adjunct professor at Golden Gate University. He's also the founder of Awasti Consulting, who supports leaders in mission-driven businesses and companies, nonprofits. And so I'm so glad he's going to be here today and talking about our challenges as well as opportunities when it comes to conflict management. Hi, Anil. It's good to have you on the show.
I'm Melinda. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here, especially because you help nonprofits, mission-driven organizations. And so before we jump into the meat and potatoes about conflict resolution and conflict management, I'm curious, what are you excited about working with these organizations?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I started off my career in nonprofits even before I got into HR. After I decided that I want to pursue a career in HR, I kind of fell into a nonprofit
Mhm.
that applied to a number of organizations and nonprofits where I just started my HR career. And I really liked the idea of serving the community
Mhm.
and thinking of the community as our shareholders and our stakeholders,
Mhm.
and that just really resonated with me. And long story short, 10 years later, I've just been working in nonprofits and HR leadership. I teach at a nonprofit and I consult to nonprofits. Although I
Mhm.
do consult to some for-profits, most of my work has been around nonprofit that are mission
Mhm.
driven.
Yeah, no, I'm just so glad. I love talking to people, meeting people that have a connection to their work and just a connection to feel, hey, I'm putting in so many hours of my day. You might as well find something that you feel connected to and to
Yes,
fulfill you.
yes,
And
I
also the
agree.
people around you. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
thank you for all your work on that and the nonprofit space and helping the community. Really appreciative. And so what, and your specialty, even drilling down further, you have specialty around conflict management. And so I was curious, I've heard I have a conflict resolution credential from Golden Gate University, and that's also where you're a professor. And so it's interesting because I wonder what's the difference between conflict management and conflict resolution.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the first classes I started teaching
Uh-huh.
at Melinda University, and I still teach that in this semester as well. So the way I see the distinction is that not every conflict is going to be resolved with a win-win resolution.
Mhm.
I firmly believe most conflicts, like 80% of conflicts, can be resolved with a
Okay.
win-win, meaning both parties can actually have everything they want, maybe not in the manner that they wanted, but they have to
Uh-huh.
collaborate and generate
Uh-huh.
solutions.
Uh-huh.
They can still have their interests and their goals be met.
Hmm.
Conflict resolution, on the other hand, I'm sorry, conflict management, on the other hand, I believe is for those like 20% or so conflicts that aren't going to result in a win-win, where you have to agree to disagree. But how you agree to disagree, I think, is what matters. It matters in workplace relationships, and I think it matters in close personal relationships. So I think how you manage that disagreement is where conflict management shines, and that's why I use the term conflict management in my class more than I use conflict resolution.
Oh, that's really interesting. So, do the conflict management, is that for specifically once you've identified, we're not going to be able to resolve this, and then this is where the class fills in the gap for the 20%, or you kind of cover the whole gamut?
Well, I cover the whole
Or
gamut, but I
yeah,
think
okay.
it's more easy for me to illustrate this in
Yeah,
those areas where all of our needs are not going to be met. Suppose we have to
right.
come to a compromise where we meet halfway. I give up something, you give up something, and I get something, and you get something. Well, we might not be completely satisfied, but we have to move on because
Mm-hmm.
conflict just isn't over when you have a resolution.
Mm-hmm.
You have to manage the aftermath, the emotions, and all
Mm-hmm.
all of those things that you know come to the forefront and can put our relationships in danger if they aren't
Right.
managed.
Right. Because like you said, we are going to still continue to work with these people. This is
Yes.
conflict management, assuming that we are going to work with these people. And so how do we go through, tell me more about what you said about how we're getting to the end or the the not there's no resolution, but how in the process of managing the conflict. Tell me more about what that means.
Yeah, it's to me what that means is my relationship with you
Yeah.
is more important to me than
Hmm.
a win right now.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you might get a win right now, but you'll incur a net loss over a period of time
Hmm.
because you do
Hmm.
more damage to the relationship than is necessary. So I
Hmm.
think that's what it means to me. If you back into a compromise, like I said, well, you might not get everything, but maybe, next, suppose you're in conflict with your spouse or another loved one, a close personal relationship. Maybe I got a little bit more out of the deal than you this time. And next time, the
Yeah.
way I'm going to manage this is maybe I'm going to give in a bit more, right?
Yeah.
So one party isn't always getting the short end of the stick. So
Yeah.
that's in my opinion how these number of acts that you do after you've had
Yeah.
conflict to either destroy the relationship or strengthen the relationship. Because relationships don't mean we're going to be in agreement all the time.
Right, right. This reminds me of this has nothing to do with conflict, but it actually just reminds me of my mom who had cancer.
Mm,
And when something like this happens, so you're about to go into conflict, you can do a couple of things, right? She had cancer. She did everything that she needed to do to fight this cancer for her in her perspective. There's a lot of ways to go about it, but she did her chemotherapy, her radiation, she did the surgery. And there's some people that are gonna fight the whole way, be upset the whole way, and angry and yell at everybody around her. And there's something for her, she was just the kindest person. She was still
mm,
just warm. And so this is what we're talking about, the process, right? When you're in a conflict, you can go about it a couple ways. You can be angry and yell, or you can really try, your best to listen, to have empathy. The outcome, like you said, it was no resolution because she ended up passing away. But then when we reflect back about the whole process of what she had gone through, it was like how she went about to do it
mm.
was was what she
Wasn't
wanted and what I remember. So like you said, like if we're in a relationship with somebody and we're having conflict and you reflect back, even though there's no resolution, her
Mhm.
for my mom, there was no beneficial outcome for her. That was not the outcome that she wanted.
Of
But
course.
I think, yeah, but I think that her process of how she went about it
Mhm.
was exactly what she wanted to do.
I'm so sorry to hear
So
about your
there's no,
mom.
yeah,
It,
I just for whatever reason just started, thinking
that's
about that. But I think that hopefully that will help people see what when you reflect back
mhm.
in this
Yeah,
moment. Hmm.
because you could do a lot of damage in those types of
Yeah,
situations. And
right,
we can either talk about this now or at some other time, but emotions are internal facts. That's how I talk
right,
about them in my classes. And people often make these types of assertions. Oh, you shouldn't get mad, you shouldn't feel that way. Well, they are.
right.
Well, they are. And
Mm-hmm.
it just is what it is. And they ought
Mm-hmm.
to be acknowledged during conflict,
Mm-hmm.
not acted out, but acknowledged. You
Yes,
can't leave
yes,
part of it behind, and which is a very strong stimulus in emotions are acknowledging them and trying to understand the emotions the other is going through will help you get to a better resolution and
right.
prevent
I
you
think
from
both
doing more
ends.
damage as well.
Right. I think both ends, right? As a person, if I'm angry, I can decide whether I'm going to act out on it, right? Or and also the receiver, like you said, sometimes people will say you shouldn't feel angry.
Yeah.
But if you're the receiver of this anger, like you said, acknowledging that anger, both when both parties can do that and just acknowledge it, um, and then decide whether you want to act out on it. If you have a lot of anger, then perhaps like you if you're thinking back about the process, maybe we don't want to act out on it
Yeah.
and give yourself some time and
Yeah,
space.
emotions are complicated. I mean,
Right,
anger
right,
might be on the surface observable, but it
right.
might not actually be the emotion the person is feeling. They might be, men tend to do this a lot. They will
Hmm.
mask, fear with
Hmm.
anger.
Right.
And not all men, but it's, overwhelmingly men do this. So
Hmm.
understanding what emotions someone is feeling and to navigate those is it's incredibly important in conflict. I
Right.
do a whole lecture on that in my classes.
Yeah, can you share one tip or one how to manage it from your perspective?
First
What?
off, the biggest tip I can share is recognize your own emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in fact angry
Mm-hmm.
or you're afraid?
Mm.
You know, for women, are you actually thinking it's not a big deal and you're just avoiding? Or is it a really big deal and you're just masking that anxiety of having to deal with a conflict with just avoidant behavior? So recognizing
Right.
your emotions is a great place to start.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of us will avoid it because it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah, it doesn't come.
And it is uncomfortable. And what is the opportunity when we can go and
Well, I mean, if you
address
talk
things?
about this in the context of managers and their roles in conflict management,
Right.
um, oftentimes in my career, managers come to me and they're talking about a certain type of conflict that their employees are facing. And, I talk through them, I engage in some coaching, and I'll ask questions about what the employee has done. Because remember, we are talking about adults here, right? What
Right.
has the
Right.
employee done to resolve this? Oh, the employee feels uncomfortable, or they feel
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable coming to you directly. I said, okay. And as the manager, how have you addressed that?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, they address it by taking over the responsibility. And that is a disservice, in my opinion, to the
Mm-hmm.
employee and the organization.
Mm.
Um, Being uncomfortable is not a good enough reason to avoid something. That's how you
Yeah.
learn. That's how you grow. And it's not a manager's job to provide a comfortable environment. A manager's job is to provide a safe environment.
Got it. I love that. I love that.
So,
That's so true.
thank
Mm-hmm.
you. So, providing a safe environment
Right.
means that you have to encourage appropriate risk taking. So,
Right.
some of the biggest issues I see with managers are managers avoid dealing
Mm-hmm.
with conflict. Managers tend to be conflict avoidant. One of the biggest complaints about managers is they do not handle conflict. They either
Mm-hmm.
hope it'll just go away or they pretend like it just doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, so they're avoidant. Some other things that they do is they engage or they create a situation where avoidable conflict actually flourishes and people engage in conflict that can
Oh,
be easily avoided by having unclear expectations, unclear job descriptions, or setting up situations where people are competing against each other for no reason. Now, I'm not saying
wow.
competition should be eliminated.
Right.
Some
Right.
competition's incredibly healthy,
Right.
but it has to be deliberate. But when, from the employee's perspective, they have unclear directions, they feel they're responsible for something or have jurisdiction or something, so does
Mm-hmm.
someone else. Well, that's going to result in conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Coupled that with a manager that is avoidant, it's just going
Mm-hmm.
to play out for a long period of time until it blows up.
Wow.
So the last thing
Okay.
managers do is what I illustrated in the beginning is they feel the need to go to the rescue of the person that's complaining.
Mm-hmm.
And while mediation is a powerful tool,
Mm-hmm.
it shouldn't be the first step. Not every
Mm-hmm.
conflict's going to be ripe for mediation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Managers' roles, I believe, are to teach, to coach, to facilitate. But facilitation comes later. That's the mediation piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
Taking the time to think through with the complainant, the person that's come to you with a conflict situation. What is your role in this conflict? How have you contributed to it? What are your goals? How would you like
Mm-hmm.
to see it resolved? What can you say to this person? How can you approach them? Spending the time and thinking through all of these is going to do more service for the employee and the organization, and will
Right.
free up the manager's time in the future because they won't have to jump in every conflict.
Right. And how do they know? How does the manager know whether they're avoiding or not?
How does a manager know if they're avoiding or not?
Yeah. Is there
Um,
clear symptoms?
Well, I think working with a coach is good.
That's
I
right.
think working with a coach
Right.
is good. Asking their staff for feedback. How well do you think
Right.
the conflict?
That's a good one. That's a good
Yeah,
one.
it's not.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's nothing
Well,
remarkable about it, but asking for feedback. But it's also uncomfortable, and
yeah,
if you are coming from a collectivistic culture where saving face
right.
is the norm, you're probably not going to want to ask those types of questions. And if you're an employee coming from collectivistic cultures, you're probably not going to want to give direct feedback to your superior either.
Hmm.
So you have to ask in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, anonymous survey, but it
Sure,
would be helpful to get some feedback. I mean,
for
because,
sure.
yeah, I mean,
If
especially if
possible.
you want, right, right.
Yeah,
If you
that's
want to
capable.
understand where there's some blind spots, or as a manager, right, what can I do? You can put it more holistically. Yeah, what can I do to be a better manager? And
Yeah.
then, mhm,
I think a good place to start for managers is learning assertiveness skills.
yeah,
So
that's,
if somebody comes to you with a conflict situation, you quickly assess it and be like, I'm happy to help, but I really want you to I really wish you guys would deal with it first. And if you
uh-huh,
can't, then come get me.
uh-huh,
Pushing the responsibility back on the employee.
mm-hmm,
Make yourself available if they need help, they want to talk through
mm-hmm,
things, but don't just jump in there like a knight going to the
mm-hmm,
rescue of
mm-hmm,
one of your employees.
mm-hmm,
Okay, if they're
mm-hmm.
uncomfortable, they'll be fine.
What are you finding is what are the primary challenges? You mentioned they avoid. Is it, and they're avoiding because they don't know how to give direct feedback, or
Well, there are a number of reasons, but
just,
not all of them apply to everybody. Some
mhm,
people are naturally conflict avoidant. That's
yeah,
the strategy that they've practiced ever since childhood. So they have a lot of competency with that strategy.
yeah,
And our job is to kind of get them to develop some level of competency with other areas like
yeah,
collaboration, accommodation, compromise, even competition. That others, it's just uncomfortable. Another reason it's just uncomfortable, so they're rather not.
got it.
And
And that's probably where we want to lean into when we're finding discomfort with something that, like you said, it's not about avoiding the discomfort, but it's about, hey, create, because you and your team, we're all feeling discomfort, but as a manager, you want to be the safety, like
absolutely,
provide safety to go and lean into the discomfort because that's where you're going to grow.
yeah.
Those are
I
the
just
areas. Yeah.
Yeah, I just ran a couple of workshops the last 4 weeks or so for a couple of my
Uh-huh.
clients in conflict management.
Yeah.
And I always ask, when I do my trainings like on performance management, interview skills, things like that, I always ask if the manager's ever received such a training before. And almost always no hands go up. And it's so
Wow.
interesting, even in 2023, we put people in leadership roles and not give them the tool because they're really good at the job. They're really good at the tactical
Mm-hmm.
piece of their
Mm-hmm.
jobs. But we forget that the leadership skills need to be developed. And it's okay to put a high performer in those roles, but you have to give them the tools as well. And sometimes I feel that managers believe that now they're a manager, they have those skills,
Right.
and they end up going to mediation and things, and they do more harm than good because
Right.
they haven't, spent time practicing or learning some theory or just, you know, the other thing to do is to go in without preparation.
Right.
If you're
Right.
going to do a mediation meeting, I'll spend an hour, 2 hours prepping for the mediation meeting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it takes time. It's
Right.
not
Right.
something that you can do back to back. You can have back to back meetings scheduled and you just walk into a mediation without any prep. That's going to do a lot of harm.
Right, right. I agree. And mediation is almost like the last step. If you can have these skill sets and these skills beforehand, before mediation, then you're actually going to avoid the mediation altogether, the goal.
Yes, absolutely. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with mediation. It's just
Right, right.
sometimes you need external help, and that's okay.
Right, right. And like you said, I mean, because I think the managers, yeah, they know all of the technical aspects of it, but this is all, I don't think there's a an end. Yes, you may know some conflict management skills, but why cap it? Like there's always more to learn is what I'm thinking. And
Yeah.
they might think I have some basic, I got this, I'm good. And then well, what they don't realize is that I think that there's more to learn. There's always yeah, skills that we can evolve and get better at, like
And
these type of things. Yeah.
people are listening and they can think back to a conflict they mediated leader,
Right.
or even if they weren't a leader and they mediated a conflict, maybe it went well, maybe it didn't go well, but in their minds, if you guys want to do like a post-mortem and see what actually you did that worked well and things you did that did not work well and what would you do differently if
Yeah.
you don't think to a recent conflict, that's a good tool as well. So at least you're continually improving, by
Right.
having a little meeting with yourself to put.
Right. Can you share an example of a client that you worked with? Like, was it before this client was working with you before having these skills, and then what happened after you started working or finished working with the client?
Um, sure. There's a client of mine in San Francisco. They're having challenges with an employee,
Hmm.
um, and they're not sure how to approach that employee because the employee is confrontational, and in her home country had worked in HR, so they're a bit afraid of her as well.
Mm,
Um, and they don't know what they can say, or they did not know what they can say, or how to deal with this. But the colleagues were complaining as well of this employee.
okay.
About 70-80% of the colleagues that complained in that department about the one person just doesn't see it
Mm,
in meetings, even all the way up to the executive director. She'd commit to making changes, but then she'd refute everything that's being said. um Want to know who's saying what, things like that. So it was decided that coaching is not going anywhere. We need to put this employee, we need to up the ante, put her on a performance improvement plan.
mhm,
So I worked with the direct supervisor and the supervisor's manager as well, so the head of the department, on how to conduct this meeting. And
mhm,
they had a lot of anxiety around it, right? So
mhm,
we did maybe two sessions all over Zoom. And the executive director and the deputy director were there as well. And so through these two sessions, it wasn't anything remarkable, to be very honest, that I
mhm,
did or I taught them. It was just I facilitated a dialogue. We were able to take the time to plan for that meeting.
mhm.
And I think that was my only contribution. Quite frankly, I didn't have the answers, like things like what are your goals from this meeting?
Right, right.
Asking the manager, asking the supervisor, what do you think are that
Mhm,
employee's goals?
mhm,
What are your interests? What do you think are her interests?
mhm,
I know your position. What are her positions?
mhm, mhm,
And that's what she's saying. Are there deeper goals that she has?
mhm,
So, what are some of the challenges or challenging questions she might ask, and how can we respond? Practicing these responses to help build their confidence and,
mhm,
answering assertively, politely yet
mhm, mhm,
assertively,
mhm,
especially if the employee keeps probing, asking
mhm,
questions that they can't answer.
mhm,
The meeting went well. Both those meetings went well, and then the subsequent meeting with the employee went well. I was not there; that wasn't my job. But all that to say, all we did is we spent some time preparing.
mhm,
We have to take time preparing. I think in the modern day, we need more thought leaders. And
mhm.
I do some of my best thinking when I'm out for a walk or I'm working out or I'm
Right,
in the garage playing.
right,
That's what I'm thinking, and that's work as well. And I always
right.
tell people, it's not like you if you're sitting at your computer frantically typing away, that's not maybe all the work. Just thinking of that as work is not true. There's
Mhm,
other things you have to stop and think.
mhm.
I jokingly say 10 years ago, I used to have all the answers when I started in HR. Now I don't. I got to actually stop and think. And
Yeah,
that's the evolution, you're becoming more strategic, right?
right,
So,
right.
so taking that time, unfortunately, I find people aren't able to do that. And they might not, they might not know the types of questions to ask. So I think my value there was just being able to hold a space, ask the question, and force them to think through these things.
Mhm,
And provide them
mhm.
with some techniques, assertiveness trainings and things like that, and how to answer.
Well, that's huge. I mean, for you, you might think, oh, I didn't provide much, but then even just these basics is huge because you're good at it. So for you, it probably will come easier. For them, it's like they don't even know where to begin, and they may not have even known how to prepare. And like you said, I think because those some people, we jump from one thing to another, and then we think, okay, we're just gonna go in it and just wing it, or just not even know where to begin, so they don't prepare. So I think with you and helping them to go through all the different types of questions to really think through what she's thinking, and even though you don't have all the answers, but I think when we could put ourselves in the other person's shoes and think through what they're thinking, what their needs are, what their desires or goals are, even if it's not accurate, but at least just putting ourselves in the other person's shoes. And then what I also found is I feel like even though you prepared, I think like you said, I think the goal is because we we're feeling better. We're feeling a little bit more confident, but even going in not knowing everything is okay, but at least having preparation and then knowing that you're going to provide that safe space for everyone to talk about things,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
I mean, just getting comfortable and saying, "Hey, I can't answer that. Or,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll get back to you." Knowing that
Mhm.
those are options,
Right.
goes a long
Right.
way.
Totally.
But I think it
And going
also,
back to the original thought about process, like how do we
absolutely,
want to leave this,
yeah.
yeah, this discussion?
If you
Uh-huh.
think about your goals, I think this is where I really focus with people heavily is what are your goals?
Right.
Writing down your goals, actually writing them down, thinking about them,
Hmm.
and ranking them I think is really powerful because it helps you get a deeper sense of what it is that you want to see as an outcome
Hmm.
and estimate what the other person might want to see as an outcome as well.
Yeah.
The reason I think this is so powerful is because you can calculate, how to negotiate what goals are your non-negotiables and which goals can you negotiate upon and still be very happy.
Hmm.
If you
Hmm.
don't go through those calculations,
Right.
you might negotiate away the wrong things, or you might not know you could have given something up and preserved the relationship, and it wouldn't have made a difference to you.
Correct. Correct. That's huge. That's huge.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And knowing the things that we want to negotiate that are negotiable, non-negotiables. And that way you're not in the conversation and just standing, with blank stare.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome, Anil. And so what when we have people out there, they're listening, they might be thinking about their employee, having these difficult conversations with employees are crucial. And what how can they reach you? Or how can they, yeah, what
Well, thank
can you
you.
do to help them? Uh-huh.
Yeah, thank you. So they can visit my website and submit an inquiry.
Okay.
I believe you'll have some information as well about Awasti Consulting. That's my last name, Awasti consulting.com. You can shoot me a message there. You can also shoot me a message at Anil at awasticonsulting.com. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. We're putting out some good content, hopefully on a weekly basis around HR and the evolution of HR, AI, all of these things, a lot to do with
Awesome.
culture. So I'm happy to connect, do a lot of not just HR, but I do some operational consulting as well.
Awesome.
But I love working with people. So, I work with not just leaders, but emerging leaders and boards of
Mhm.
directors as well. So if you
Awesome.
if you'd like to just have an exploratory call, I'm happy to do that as well.
Thank you, Anil. And
You're
what
welcome.
are your last key tips for our leaders that are out there that are struggling with having these types of conversations effectively?
Yeah. Well, the one tip I'll share is that be kind to yourself.
Mm,
It's conflict management, effective conflict management is not for the faint of heart. It is challenging. It takes a lot of cognitive energy, takes time to prepare, takes time to go through the meetings. You have to sit in difficult, uncomfortable situations, and they will always be uncomfortable. Okay. Doesn't matter how long you've been, they will always be uncomfortable.
mm,
And then you also have to spend time and energy and cognitive capacity to manage the aftermath. So be kind to yourself. Know that you have a lot of expertise in whatever your default style is. It might be avoidant, it might be competition. Practice that your whole life.
mhm,
So you can't just attend a seminar or a class and
mhm,
expect to have equal competency in other styles that are more productive, maybe like
mhm.
collaboration. So just be kind to yourself and be the willing partner. Know that the other person's also experiencing challenges. So be that willing partner for them as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
About showing kindness, compassion to ourselves as we go through these difficult situations and getting all the tools, the techniques necessary from either you, from people to navigate these uncomfortable situations. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We're
Yes.
all in this together. The reality is, as people, as humans, in this uncomfortable journey, like let's make it the best that we can for
Yes.
ourselves
And
and others. So I really
actually just
appreciate that.
apologize when you make a mistake. A sincere
I know, right?
apology goes a very long way. In my class, I
It
talk about
does.
the components of an apology, but that's we're running out of time here, but
Yeah,
apologize if need be, and that's leave your ego at the door. You'll be fine.
it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Anil. Thank you so much for your time, your expertise. Really appreciate it. Reach out to Anil. All of his information will be in the
Thank you.
comments and the notes. Take
Thank you.
care.
Take care.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. Are you curious on how you measure up with your ability to speak in flow? Come grab my free self-assessment at https://speakinflow.com/assessment. And I'll see you on the other side.